everybody. Welcome to UKGK TV. My name's Dave Nicholson, and this is
Julian Ryan.
Julian's here today because he's basically a resin kit collector, and basically his specialised subject is Universal Monsters. Met Julian a few years ago, and basically he's been collecting Universal Monsters for quite a while now. It turns out he's a bit of an expert, if I'm honest with you, Julian. How did you get into it first?
Well, I think like a lot of us back in the 70s, early 70s when we were kids.
Yeah.
It was the Aurora kits that had been released in the 60s.
So you're a Aurora boy, were you?
But yeah. But they were still being produced in the 70s, and it was that eye-catching, iconic artwork on the boxes that James Bammer did.
Oh, you
using
love
all
it.
those colours. There was like a lot of yellows and greens and purples.
Yeah,
I mean, one of my favourite ones was the cover for the Frankenstein monster one.
The one where he's kind of...
Yeah, which is kind of based. It's kind of based on Glenn Strange, although the kit is unmistakably Karloff when you look at the head sculpt.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so it was that, and the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, although it's not a Universal film, it's Paramount. But again, just the colours, you know, and the kits, those kits, the styrene kits were great.
Yeah.
I wasn't into my Airfix aircraft. We'd all had to go with them. And
So you were one of them weirdos like me.
Yeah.
Like you weren't into your planes, trains and tanks and stuff. You was a strange character like me. Yeah?
There's got to be something better out there than a bloody plane.
There is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And the other thing was the famous Monster, the Film Line magazine that came out in the 50s, Forrest J. Ackerman's magazine.
That was
Again,
like a go-to, wasn't it?
yeah, artwork, Basil Gogos, again,
that's the
yellows
stuff,
and
isn't it?
blues
Yeah,
and greens
yeah.
and purples. Just incredible artwork.
But you actually, it actually spills over for you because you're obsessed with the films, aren't you? You're quite a...
Well,
quite
it was, it was seeing those images that made me think, well, where are the films then?
Yeah.
Because the thing is, you know, back in those days, we had 3 channels.
Yeah.
You know,
Believe it or not, guys, across the pond, we had 3 channels.
3 channels.
Yeah.
BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV.
You're showing your age a bit now, though.
BBC Two, bless them, on a Saturday night, if you can remember, used to do Appointment with Fear, which was like a double feature, a double bill. It was like unheard of in those days, but they had to go at it. And it was the Universal Monster films. I didn't show them in any particular order, you know, which didn't really matter when I was a kid. But that's when I got to see them. I stayed at my nana's in summer holidays and said, Nana, can I stay up and watch this? And I used to watch them.
So that was your thing, was it?
And that was it. That's the first time I ever saw the films. But you get to see them once, and then you don't see them again for years. Like.
No. So basically, you started off with your Universal stuff, your Aurora stuff. Resin. Now, did you naturally progress to the resin side? How did that come to happen?
Well, the resin came about. You mentioned Des to me the other week.
Des, good old Des. Shout out to Des.
Yeah.
Des at Manchester Models.
Yeah, Manchester Models on Deansgate.
Quality guy.
Ran out 91.
Quality.
Yeah, it'd be about 91, 92. And I was kind of drawn to the Horizon vinyl kits that were out.
Which ones were they? Which was it, the Terminator or the superhero ones?
I did. Yeah. I mean, this again, you see, although I was into my horror stuff, they brought out a Terminator 2 kit. You know, the exposed endoskeleton. You know, we're all familiar with that one. And of course the full endoskeleton one as well. But they also did a Wolfman one. They did the Frankenstein one.
They were a bit weird though, weren't they? They weren't true representations of
the Wolfman was off. It was off, but I thought the Frankenstein one was good. I liked the head sculpt. I really liked the head sculpt of that.
Yeah. Creature was quite good.
Yeah, Creature was good. I mean, the thing with vinyl is you could get the detail, you know, because of it's vinyl. So you know, you know, they could really. I mean, like the Creature, you know, like scales really got the scales.
So you had all of them.
Yeah, I bought those. But then they had these things in cardboard boxes with just a picture of the painted up thing, and I'm thinking, what's this?
Them were the days.
You know, what is this? And he just stuck one on the counter, and the first one I ever saw was a Mike Hill sculpt, and it was supposed to just be a one-off.
Yeah.
And it was Kong, and it was
called yeah. That's great. That one.
Yeah.
You don't see that one very often, guys. It's about yay big, isn't it?
Yeah.
And he's got like some sort of reptile wrapped around him, and he's kind of wrestling with it.
It gets mistaken for a snake, but it's not. It's got flippers, so it's like a plesiosaur, which is what the Loch Ness Monster is supposed to look like.
Yeah. So
that
was your first resin.
I bought that, but it had more air holes in it than Aero Bar.
Oof, that was the but the guys that are just getting into it, Julian, they do not appreciate what it's like now. I mean,
Absolutely.
we must have, we're not getting on at you guys. But
No.
It was in that day. The technology wasn't there, was it?
It wasn't, no.
But the sculpting was amazing.
Without a doubt, it's Mike Hill.
Big
that's it.
Mike Hill fan.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, Mike's good.
Love his,
Mike's good.
love
Mike's
his
good.
work. But I got the Christopher Lee Dracula bust. So hard.
Shapeshifters one, yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
Did you get the Mummy as well?
No, not got that one yet. They're on the list. It's not a wish; it's a wants list. It's a have list. It's a will have.
So that was the start of your
The
obsession.
Aurora styrene kits
Was the start of your
were
obsession.
still being produced in the early 70s. I get, just saving up and buying them.
Did you ever see that series that the Americans have just fetched out, where they basically have done the Aurora poses, but in a more realistic fashion? Have you not seen them?
No.
They're called the Box Art Classics by Jeff Yeager. Correct me if I'm
Oh
wrong.
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
You seen
I'm
them?
sorry, yeah. No, it's Box Art Tribute.
That's it.
Yeah.
Did you see them? They're pretty
Yes,
good.
sorry, yes, I have. It's Box Art Tribute kits. I mean, it's basically where he's just going for a more
Realistic, isn't it?
realistic, authentic head sculpt more than anything.
Yeah.
Because that's where that was. I mean, what was some of the nicknames given to the Frederick March Mr. Hyde one? Hobo, looks like a tramp, a toothless tramp, stuff like that.
What was that? The kit?
Just the head sculpt, nothing wrong with the kit.
All right.
The whole thing about having the table and the upturned stool, you can set it up, stood up, and the mixing glasses and the bottles and everything on the table. I mean that was a great idea, and the whole thing about him clutching his throat as he's pouring, And the thing with that is a lot of people over the years said, how come they never put any? How come whoever did it never put any hair on the left arm?
Right.
Well, my theory for that was he's in mid-transformation.
I'll see.
Yeah.
You've looked at these
Because
things, haven't you?
Yeah, because he's got that's just geek mode, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because he's got one hairy arm, because he's got his sleeve rolled up on his lab coat. He's got one hairy arm and one that's not got any hair on it at all.
Right.
That you can really notice.
Yeah.
And I reckon my theory for that was because he's only just taken the potion, so he's still in mid-transformation.
Mid-transformation.
That doesn't explain why he's got no teeth, though. That was just down to bad.
Never noticed that.
Bad injection moulding.
Never noticed
They're
that.
there, but
Yeah.
they're not like those simian primate teeth that Frederick March had.
You like your horror films. I mean, I loved the T-shirt.
Yeah, there we go. Well, I could talk about Karloff all day.
You like Karloff? Is he your fave?
Yeah, without a doubt.
Why do you like Karloff? Bill's a big Karloff fan as well.
Yeah. His interpretation of the monster, pathos, childlike, lost, didn't ask to be put in that situation, doesn't know who he is, he has no identity, because his brain, which is a damaged brain, it's a criminal brain. Mm-hmm.
So go through all the
everything about
Universal films. Is Frankenstein your man, or is he a better? What would you? What's your fave?
The one that ticked all the boxes was the sequel to Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein 1935.
That's your fave.
Without a doubt. Of the Universal films.
Why does that one tick all the boxes?
It just took everything to it just took everything to another level. I mean, we talk about. I mean, obviously, we know how influential the first Frankenstein film was. Mm-hmm. But with regards to 1935, it was like James Whale said, I'm only going to come back if I'm allowed to just go full out and do exactly what I want to do and bring in everybody in. I mean, you've got Dr. Frankenstein. His name escapes me now. Who played him? I mean, he died young, didn't he? He was
Colin Clive.
Colin Clive. You could see with Colin Clive's character that there was a lot of that manicness within him as a person.
Right.
I mean, he died from alcoholism at the age of 36, so there was clearly issues.
Yeah.
Plus, he was like a lot of people that are closet homosexual. He didn't want to come out. But again, so was James Whale. So was Ernest Thesiger, who played Dr. Pretorius. But again, look at Pretorius' character.
Yeah.
To have a character like that, in a film in 1935.
Mad, isn't it?
It is.
Mad.
It is because there's no doubt about it that, well, we know exactly what we're talking about. It's just incredible. And the Karloff himself, I mean, The Monster Speaks, which was like the big selling point for the film, which he was dead against. He just didn't think that was going to work.
Yeah.
But it did. The whole hermit scene in the in the little cottage.
That's your favourite, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's parodied in Young Frankenstein with Gene Hackman in the same part, but there's still. I mean, although it's made funny,
Yeah.
it's still a sincere nod to that scene
Right, I see.
in The Bride of Frankenstein.
Now you mention it, I see that now. Yeah. So going forward with your resins, what have you? So did you stay in the hobby or did you dip out and come back? What did you do?
Dipped out of it for far too many years.
Got married and had children.
It's before that became a driving instructor, and a lot of my time was taken up by that.
So what got you back into it again more recently?
Coming out of driving instruction and just basically having various health issues, which was taking a lot of my energy away.
So you needed something to.
I
You
needed
needed a hobby.
I needed something to keep me on the right side of sane.
Well, yeah, this
Just.
this, but marginally. You want,
just, and yeah, absolutely. Revisiting something that
you got a lot of joy out of.
a lot of joy out of, and now, I think I'm more passionate now than I've ever been.
I can tell.
You know,
I can tell you're passionate about it. So coming back into it, what was the first one you came back into? What tweaked your fancy and thought, do you know what? I'm going to go back and start and have a go at that again. Because you're quite passionate about the movies. Every time I talk to you, you're very knowledgeable and very passionate about the movie. So what tweaked your fancy and what did you think, you know what, I'm going to have a go at that again? Because you're a good painter. I've seen your paint jobs. Your paint jobs are fantastic, you know. So
I didn't want to buy anything too big that I would probably make a mess of. So I remember buying the Mike Hill Christopher Lee bus from yourself.
Well,
2 years ago.
It's a go-to, isn't it?
No, that was the one. I thought I can't go too wrong with this. You know,
Because it's such a good sculpt.
yeah.
Yeah.
Can't go too wrong with it, and the depth of detail is such that, you know, if I don't like maybe the skin tone or something, I can tweak it and go over it and
play with it,
I can play with it a lot.
Mike Hill again.
Yeah, Mike Hill again, and people I showed it to were like really well. They were really impressed with what I did. So then the next one I thought, we'll go big. And
Go on, have a look. Show me this one. This is the
I
one
got
you
this
did.
guy off you.
This is the one. This is the half-scale Darren Harvey, Boris Karloff.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's from Frankenstein. This one.
Yeah, 1931 Frankenstein.
What's the difference? Tell us the subtle difference between.
Well, the thing with the 31 Frankenstein, and again, what a lot of people don't realise is just how much creative input Karloff had into the makeup design. I mean, Jack Pierce is credited with applying the makeup, but he wasn't solely involved in the design of it. And a lot of this came from when James Whale first saw Karloff sat having his lunch in what we'd call a cafeteria, so at Universal Studios. And he was looking across at Karloff just sat there, and he thought it's just something about his face which just well, when he finally sat down opposite him, the first words he said was, "Your face amazes me."
Oh right.
Karloff didn't quite know how to take that, followed by, "You'd make a great monster," which made me think even more, I don't quite know how I'm going to take this. And that's why the makeup was designed in such a way that from the brow upwards is where the makeup mainly is.
Yeah.
And back again. So the idea was that James Whale could allow Karloff to use his face as much as possible to capitalise on his facial expressions. And you'll see so many expressions in so much so that, for instance, like the NECA Universal Monster figure that comes out has got like 4 different heads.
Yeah.
There's one of him looking very stoic.
Grimacing.
There's one of him like a puzzled, open mouth look. There's one of him snarling. He does that classic kind of look, showing the teeth. Yeah. So that was the whole idea.
Is it true that he had dentures took out there to do the hollowies?
Yeah, again, that was Karloff's idea. I mean, he was a jobbing actor. He'd never had a lead role. He'd made over 50 movies, a lot of which he was uncredited for. You know, just walk off part. I think it was a gangster movie called Graft, which was one of the first things that James Whale had seen him in, and thought he's got the height, and there is something about his face, and that's when he finally saw him in the cafeteria having his lunch. He thought, I'm going to go over and speak to this guy because I can just see it. So yes, the sunken cheek effect, but again, that came from Karloff because Pierce is saying, you know, you've got quite prominent cheekbones. And a very prominent jawline because he was underweight. He was a jobbing actor. He couldn't really afford to feed himself quite well. So Karloff literally just went, well, what about this? And just went, and just pulled out this dental bridge that he had. And he went, okay. And then he sucked his cheek in. So he just sucked his cheek in, like, you know, we can all go like that, can't we?
Yeah.
He just sucked his right cheek in. And Pierce, I mean, again, we only know this from what people have said and conversations between the two of them in interviews when he was still alive, obviously. He said, just hold that there. And he just got some dark makeup and he just shaded in that area while he was just sucking it in.
Yeah.
Now, he couldn't spend the whole film sucking his cheek in. But when he popped the cheek back out, the fact he still got this dental bridge removed left this effect of like the sunken cheek.
Superb.
It only worked with him. Pierce used it on every other actor under the Universal Monsters that played the Frankenstein monster, but it ended up looking like a beauty spot.
Yeah.
He should never have bothered with it.
Yeah.
It only worked for Karloff because he had that definite little hollow when he took the dental bridge out. So that's true, yeah. That is.
I didn't know that. So what's next on your list on here?
Well, again, we've got another one by the same sculptor.
That's another Darren Harvey one.
Yeah.
One at half scale.
Lugosi, who, well, I mean, the first thing is that Bella was the first one offered the part.
Well, Frankenstein.
To play the Frankenstein monster.
Right.
Okay, so basically the backstory to that is that on the success of Dracula first, which Lugosi wasn't the first choice. I mean, he was not the first choice for Dracula. Despite the fact he played the role over 500 times on Broadway, they wanted an American actor,
to play Dracula.
Right. But Browning was very much more into, well, if we look at where the character comes from within Bram Stoker's novel,
European, isn't it? Really?
You know, we've got a guy down the road who's playing the role on stage, but Universal execs were saying, well, there's a difference between stage acting and film acting.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of thing. Lugosi had made quite a few films. He made quite a few films while he was still in Hungary as a jobbing actor. And this is the other thing. These guys were like pushing 50 when they got these roles.
Wow.
You know, and this is a mad thing. This is a mad thing. So Lugosi's offered the part. They do a screen test. He doesn't like the makeup. That's his first issue. Lugosi doesn't like this Frankenstein makeup they were coming up with. You might remember there was a picture called, I think it's called The Golem, which came out, and the makeup was very reminiscent of that, like all this grey kind of thing, and looking more like a lumbering statue that's come to life. He didn't like it, but the main thing is he completely misunderstood the character because he was quoted as saying, all this character does is stumble around grunting. Any idiot can do that. So, I'm an actor.
So that's why he didn't really get...
So when he found out that it wasn't a speaking role, he thought, no, I'm not interested. So, biggest mistake of his life. He steps aside. Boris is discovered and completely got it from day one as to really the way this character should be played, as we said.
And the rest is
a lost soul. So the Karloff then, so much so that by the time the sequel comes out in 1935, 4 years later, it's Karloff. Not even Boris Karloff, it's Karloff, because everybody knows by then who he is.
Yeah.
And Lugosi, by then, is struggling to get lead roles in films.
Big mistake.
A big mistake, yeah. I think one of Bella's other mistakes was he never really grasped the English language, or certainly the way the Americans put it. He would learn his lines verbatim and kind of say them in kind of a monologue kind of way, which worked well with Dracula.
Because that's how he is, isn't it? Yeah.
It worked well.
Yeah.
I never drink wine. It works.
Yeah.
But there's other roles he was given where that just doesn't work. It's like, can we speed it up a bit?
Yeah,
can we put a bit more expression into what he's saying?
Yeah.
You know?
So this is your next one.
This is my next one, yeah.
So how are you going to paint that one? Is it going to be grayscale? Is it going to be... You're going to do it in grayscale, or are you going to paint it in colour? What's your preference?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I'm looking at maybe doing like a monochrome grayscale look.
Right. Okay.
You know, there's so much debate over what colour were these characters. I mean, it's like, for instance, with the Frankenstein one. How many times have you seen it painted green?
Yeah.
But in reality, why would it be green? That doesn't kind of make sense.
Yeah.
You know, I think a death-like colour to me is like just going back to this one again a second. Jack Pierce used a green, what he called it, a greyish green with a hint of blue, and it was produced by Max Factor. God knows why Max Factor would want to produce colour shades like that, but that's where the Max Factor makeup of makeup artists came from, because Max Factor brought out a lot of the makeups that were used back then. So there is actually some footage, some test footage for Son of Frankenstein where it's in colour, and it's just green. But when it photographs in black and white, films in black and white, it looks like a grey, very light grey, washed out white kind of colour. Lugosi again insisted on doing his own makeup because he'd done it over nearly 1,000 times on Broadway. He didn't feel the need to have Jack Pierce to come in and do his makeup for for his face. Again, Jack Pierce was equally stubborn and did insist, and he spent many hours arguing over who's going to do the makeup. So most of the makeup for Lugosi's Frankenstein appearance, again, interestingly, he only appeared on screen twice.
Right.
And this is why I can't quite get why so many people rave about Bela Lugosi. He played the part on screen twice.
Right.
1931 Dracula and 1948 Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, which was actually a spoof anyway. So, only played the role twice on screen.
Mad, isn't it?
It is a bit mad. What am I going to do with it?
Yeah.
At this stage, I mean, the hair's easy. The matte black and the off shirt, the off white waistcoat. Has it got? Oh yeah, just showing a bit of waistcoat there. You're showing a bit of waistcoat there. Yeah. And then this.
What about like the Dickie bow and stuff?
Well, it's black. There's no doubt black. But again, do you know what I found since I'm getting back into painting is that there's no true black. There's so many different shades. I mean, you go like for a very, very dark grey to get kind of a charcoal look. Looks more realistic.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly looks more realistic for clothing.
Definitely.
That's what I found.
Well, definitely. So that's going to be monotone. So we could have a look. We could have a look at that once it's done.
Yeah, I think I need to do it as a black and white version because don't get me wrong, painted up extremely well, but I'm thinking, would that be kind of how he'd look? There's never been any colour pictures of these guys.
Yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it?
Well, what about his eyes? You were saying.
Well, there's the problem. There's the problem because I think one of the things with Lugosi that is undeniable was he had such piercing blue eyes.
Are you going to do him blue, or are you going to do?
So there's the struggle. How can I do a monochrome black and white look and give him blue eyes? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm going to be studying this one for a while before I.
Well, you'll have to fetch you back in
actually lay any paint on it.
Well, we'll wait and see. So what else have we got over here then, Julian?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're not doing this in any particular order, but I think we have to pay homage to, the guy who was known as the Man of 1,000 Faces. So Lon Chaney was the first actor to do his own makeup, and this has to be without a doubt his greatest makeup and probably the most painful one that he had to endure. I mean, and it's all self-inflicted. I mean, the thing with the upturned nose, which would reappear many years later in League of Gentlemen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did he get the nose to be up?
Well, the way he did it was to basically have wire with two hooks, which went in his nostrils, which was pulled up to the top of his forehead and then concealed under a skull cap. Okay, and then putty was used. I mean, it was mainly in those days wax putty was used because we didn't have silicone rubber like we use prosthetics now, and then he would just put wax over the top just to hide where the wire and the hooks went to his nose. So he literally just pulled. I'm not going to do it now, but he literally just pulled his nostrils up with a piece of wire, just stuck it to the back of his head. Skull cap went over the top. And then with the wig on the top. But then again, there's the attention to detail. I mean, that's something that you very rarely, you probably don't see in the film. The fact that he's bald at the back and he's just got the hair at the front.
Yeah.
The downturned lower eyes, lower part of lower eyelids, bottom eyelids, they were done by inserting wire underneath on the inside of the lid, which just forced it down.
Right.
So, I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, people talk about makeup that they can only endure for a matter of minutes before they have to. I've got to take this off. I've got to take this off.
Yeah.
This guy would stay in that makeup for hours,
Wow.
But then again, I think it's because he trusted it, because he'd applied it himself, and that's the
Right, okay.
difference.
So he did his own makeup as well.
Did his own makeup? Yeah. Lon Chaney. I mean, it would be interesting to see. Again, because he was offered the role of Dracula, Todd Browning, who'd worked with Lon Chaney previously on London After Midnight, which is the lost film. This no longer exists.
Yeah.
I mean, how Universal can actually lose one of their films, God only knows. But there's no print of this film in existence. But again, an amazing makeup. The eye effect, fairly similar to what he did with Eric in The Phantom of the Opera, in that you've got that lower eyelid forced down.
Yeah.
Not quite as a starker makeup. But then again, the teeth. I mean, these teeth, these pointed teeth. Pointed teeth.
So basically, he's got his lantern.
Yeah, he's got his lantern as well. Yeah.
These two are, by the way, these are still available. This one's available for itself, and the Phantom is. This one's by Andy Copeland, and that one is Terry Doyle. But they're still available. But this is a great one. I'm surprised you've not gone for this one.
Do you know the thing is? It's like, first of all, I think it's amazing that, I mean, I think the film was made in 1928.
Yeah.
It's not been in existence for decades.
Yeah.
Despite that, despite hardly anybody of at least 2, if not 3 generations having never seen it, it's incredible that look can still be impressive enough to warrant somebody taking the time to sculpt and produce a piece from it. That in itself is incredible, which to me is testament to just how much of a genius Lon Chaney was.
Yeah, it's good that.
You know, he can do that. He can make a film that tragically gets lost, but people still today are talking about this makeup.
It's a good sculpt. That
incredible makeup.
It's a good sculpt, and it's a very popular character.
Absolutely. So yeah, to me, Lon Chaney, had he have lived, it would be very interesting to see how his take on Dracula would have.
So he was going to originally do it, or was going to play it?
Todd Browning wanted Lon Chaney to play the part of Dracula. That's what he wanted, but it only got as far as discussions, because Chaney was having trouble with his throat, which turned out to be throat cancer,
Right.
which he died from, I think, at the age of 52.
Wow.
Incredibly young. So that's when people were saying, what about this guy who's down the road on Broadway? What about him? What about, well, it's not necessarily down the road because it's already in New York. We're talking about Hollywood, but people had been to New York, and they'd seen Lugosi on stage, but they considered Conrad Veidt, who you might remember was the again, there was an early Jack Pierce makeup. If you've ever seen it, I think it's the laughing man or the clown, where it's like he's got that was his inspiration for the Joker.
Right. Oh, right.
Which was Conrad Veidt. So he was considered. John Barrymore, who'd done Frankenstein. Not Frankenstein. Who'd done Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Mm-hmm. He was considered. Weird choices. Paul Muni, who played Scarface.
Yeah.
There were so many different people they were coming up with, because he wanted an American in the role.
Right.
They wanted an American. But then again, it showed by Lugosi getting the part, and then Boris, fellow European and Englishman, getting the part in Frankenstein. It showed how much. I mean, certainly back to James Whale, he really wanted to use English actors and actresses as much as he possibly could.
Well, who's the last one on the list then?
Well, we talked about Senior, Junior. Again, a Jack Pierce makeup used on Lon Chaney Jr. for the Wolfman. Yeah, for the Wolfman. The thing about Lon Chaney Jr. was that he was an alcoholic.
Was he?
Wasn't the most patient of people. Him and Pierce didn't get on. I mean, this makeup took over 4 hours to apply.
Right.
And then they're moving at the end of the day. There's actually you may have seen it where there's quite a few pictures taken, but there's one in particular where Chaney's in the makeup chair and Jack Pierce is doing his usual, very careful, very finicky work on the face, and Chaney's side-eyeing him with his fist up like that, and it's literally saying, if you don't hurry up and get this finished. Now, it was probably just playing to the camera, but that's kind of how he used to think.
Wow.
He would be so impatient. and Pierce would be in the middle of applying a really delicate part of the makeup, and Chaney would be reaching for his hip flask because he'd need.
Was he really?
Yeah, he had major.
Wow.
He had major problems. But despite that, the only guy to play, well, you could call it Dracula, but the film was Son of Dracula, in which he was called Alucard, which, as we all know, is Dracula backwards. So he played. Technically, it's not Dracula, but you can call it that. He played Dracula, he played the Wolfman, and he played
Frankenstein. He played them all.
And he played the Mummy.
Wow.
He was so he spent a lot of time in Jack Pierce's makeup chair. So you can probably kind of get why at some point. Here's an interesting point. When they were looking to make Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, which was a sequel to Ghost of Frankenstein. In Ghost of Frankenstein, you may remember at the end of the film, Igor's brain is put into the monster.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's because the blood types are different, the body rejects the brain.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. And Igor's blind.
Yeah.
Okay. So when they were looking to do a sequel, they kind of wanted to work the fact that the monster is still blind and able to talk into the film. All right. And the idea was to have Lon Chaney playing both parts, which had made sense because he was the Frankenstein monster in Ghost of Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But then again, it's a case of logistics. We've got to shoot scenes of him as the Wolfman, we've got to shoot scenes of him as Frankenstein monster, and then we've got to use split screen effects so they're like both on the same.
Yeah.
Both together. This isn't going to work.
Right.
So we need to get somebody else. Ironically, Lugosi was struggling for work. At the age of 60.
So they got Lugosi.
At the age of 60, swallowed his pride and took the part of the monster.
Right.
But clearly, at 60 years of age, and just not being in the best of health, he struggled. So most of the film is taken up by, I think it's Gil Perkins and Ed Parker, the stuntmen,
right,
who you see in most of the film. It's in really close-up scenes of Lugosi. And I think that's also where the stumbling outstretched arm kind of effect comes from,
right.
Because Lugosi played the part as if he was blind and could speak because he got Igor's brain.
Yeah.
But when they showed the initial rush of the film to the executives before it was released, which you always do, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, you need to take that off. You need to take that out. The audience were just sat there laughing. Whenever Lugosi opened his mouth,
right,
I'm going to rule the world. And all this nonsense and stumbling about. So they just took it out so you couldn't hear him, but he just sat there with his mouth moving. So his mouth's inexplicably moving.
Right.
He doesn't look like, but he's not saying anything because there's no audio. Yeah. And at the same time, he's stumbling around. So through no fault of his own, Lugosi was kind of berated for his portrayal of the role. But then it didn't help the fact he was 60 anyway.
No. No. So going forward, being the sort of resin head and Universal fanatic that you are, what kit would you like to see done that you haven't seen, or what kit would you like to get hold of that you've seen that would it be?
I'm aware of, but haven't seen in the flesh, so to speak, and that's going back to. But I'd like a Bride of Frankenstein Boris one. The makeup for the Bride of Frankenstein 1935 is the definitive one, simply because after the mill fire his hair's singed, so you get to see not only the clamps on the front of the head exposed, but all the way around the sides and the back.
Yeah.
And that was a brilliant makeup in itself. There was 3 different makeups used for that film because these wounds, the burns on his hands, the burns on his cheek, heal throughout the film. His hair starts to regrow.
Yeah.
So again, attention to detail. So yeah, I'd love to see one of that. I think one's been done. I think Mike Hill did one.
Bride of Frankenstein.
Right. Bust. Yeah, that would certainly.
We'll have to look into that for you. Anything
Definitely.
else? Any other characters? You're obviously a Frankenstein fanatic.
Do you know what? It's pretty eclectic because I like my aliens, I like my predators.
That's another video, mate.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I like my hammer stuff. Back to the Universal. I think you have done one. I think you've got one of this bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd like a bigger figure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've seen one.
Yeah,
Oh, you've done a
yeah.
Cheney bus, haven't you?
Yeah.
You've got a bigger Cheney bus. So, right. So I've got the Carla Frankenstein 1931 version. I've got the Ghosty from 31. That's got to be on.
On the list.
That's got to be on the
We'll
list.
see what we can do.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Thanks for watching. It's nice to have you on board again. Thanks to Julian for popping in. I'm sure
All
you'll
right,
be
Dave.
coming in again. Smash your like and subscribe to the channel. It's good luck from me.
And goodbye from me. Hope you enjoy the video. Thank
See you later, guys.
Cheers,
Take
Dave.
care.
Thank you.